video, I'm going to get you skip casting like a champion using spinning outfits and bait casting reels. I'm going to tell you all you need to know to get it happening. But before I do, I want you to take a look at some of the action that I've captured this season out of my kayak in the Kayaker's Guide to the Gold Coast, my latest DVD. Take a look.
Done. Yep. Oh, bang. See that? Way too quick. Yep. Yes. Yep. Oh, from deep in there.
So the skip casting game is a load of fun, and it's going to allow you to get into places that you never otherwise could. It's going to help you to catch those impossible fish that are just in the most ridiculous country, and the fight that you're up for once you hook these things in tight cover is just intense. So the way that I like to start, and I did start, was with a spinning outfit. It takes away from a whole lot of the headaches that you're going to get when you first start out if you go for a bait casting setup, because you don't get overruns, you don't have to thumb your spool, and generally you're going to start with a longer rod that you can load up a lot easier than what you will with a bait casting setup. These are great for accuracy and then being able to pull fish out and being able to work it and feather it, but a bait casting outfit probably is a lot harder. So I've gone with a spinning outfit, and the rod that I use, and a lot of it is in the rod. The rod that I use is like an 80-20 blank. It's got a softer, medium soft tip. In the backbone, it's got a little bit more length, and it's fairly stiff through the back. So the bottom end of the rod just allows you to get that leverage. The top end with a softer top side is what you're going to be using to get that momentum started with your casting and allow your plastic to fling out and skip under cover. So that's what you want to do. If you've seen some of the other YouTube videos on how to skip cast, they all talk about just skimming a rock, and that's kind of the action. When you're throwing your wrist around and then casting and flicking that rod tip, you want it about that far above the surface of the water and kind of pirouetting right the way around, and then you let go and she flings the lure in under the cover. So that's the action. It's all about practice. You've got to put in a couple of hundred casts and a couple of headaches on the way, but you can get it, and it just takes your fishing to a whole new place. It's unbelievable once you've got it, the kind of fishing that you'll find yourself doing and the places that you'll come to where you can catch really aggressive fish that don't get hit by other fishermen. So that's really what it's about. That's how you do it with a spinning outfit. It's not a lot to it, to be really honest with you. It's just about getting on the water and working on that casting accuracy and that angle, getting it across the surface. I'll just suggest that with the plastics that you want to use are floating plastics. So Z-Man's plastics or boom baits, those plastics that float, like this little finesse frog on a weightless EWG hook, they're the way to go, because they just give you a much bigger room for error, and you can still start to work on your style and get some success early, which is going to make you keen to keep going. And when you stop it, if you're muddled up with your reel or still working out what you're doing as you're learning, then this little thing's going to be sitting on the surface. It's not going to be sinking down and getting snagged up. So that's the way that I'd suggest that you learn. The line that you want out from your rod tip, you want about a foot. Any longer and you start to run into problems with the speed of your cast. So if you just keep it a little bit tighter at the start, it allows you to have a faster rod speed through your cast and not get stuffed up or throw it, overrun it, whatever. So that's my suggestion for sort of rigs to use and the amount of line that you want out. Once you progress and you've got a lot of confidence from this, but you might be wanting more accuracy, if you're chasing mangrove jack or bass that are right in tight against cover and hard up against things where you need to get right up beside, say, a log, for example, then you want to get started on a bait casting setup. And there's a few more things that you've got to learn. These things are a lot more touchy and tricky when it comes to bait casting and skipping lures, but when you dial it in, this is the only way I'll go. So as long as your little lure is big enough, those little Z-Man finesse frogs, you can still do it, but I tend to go back to a spinning outfit. But if you're throwing shad style soft plastics like this little Eco Gear bolt, like a 4-inch shad, or anything around that 4 or 5 inch size, then you want to be using a bait caster to get it in nice and accurate. So the way that I'll do it, you're going to be using it's a similar blank with a bait casting outfit, like an 80-20 taper and a soft action up top, or medium to soft power and action up top. You can see that there. Okay, this is just like a 3 to 6 kilo Shimano Raider, it's a bass Raider, and it's got a little bit of stick through the center, but it's only 5'10", and that's the big difference. Once you go to bait casting stuff, if you're not casting 30 plus meters across flats or anything, you're better off going a little bit shorter so that you can get the accuracy in and against the bank, underneath the overhanging trees and structures. So that's what I'm using. And I've got a Shimano Corrado bait casting reel. I love these things. So they've got a high gear ratio, which allows me to just rip it back, and if I'm reaction bite fishing and I'm skipping it out, then I can just burn it back real quick and get my next cast in, or take up the line when it's skipping. So a high gear ratio reel with just really well lubed componentry or fairly new reel, that's what's going to work really well for you. So the way that you want to dial your reel in, you might be able to see this, once you press the button, you want your lure to sort of drop down a little bit. That's a little bit tight at the moment because I'm fishing really tight cover, but generally you want it to just start to run away from you. Okay, it's a good starting point, is just to run a little bit more than it would if you were just casting overhead like that with your bait caster. The other thing that you might think about is just putting new braid on it as well. You know that old braid can get sticky with the little frays in the braid for some of the braids that you're after and you're going to be using. Just get a new spool of braid on there and it's going to fly out a lot easier. Your leaders, I run an FG knot. I'm not sure if you can see that. That's an FG knot. It's nice and tight, and it's just one line there of the leader material going through the knot, and it's nice and smooth. If you're running a dodgy join, it's going to, when you let go, it's going to catch and it'll throw your skip out and your lure will be hurtling through the air without really getting ready to skip. Once you've dialed it in, you can use little weighted worm hooks like this, where you want the weight at the front. That's the best way to go, is to have a weight forward worm hook or a regular jig head. Hang on, there's a twat in a jet ski coming. Hold on. Alright, nearly got ran over, but we'll just get back onto what we're talking about. These weight forward EWG hooks, where you've got this little weight, it's about a 1/4 ounce in there. That's probably where you want to get going to, so you can drop these things down into the strike zone once you landed in cover, if the fish aren't up near the surface. You can also use things like a 1/32 or 1/16 ounce little jig head right at the front, like a traditional jig head, if you're not worried about hooking up and catching snags and things like that. They work fine as well. The shape of the plastic that are the best way to go are these little shad style things, and with just a more slender profile, slender head. You don't want a big chunky head that can grab the water. You want something either like that, very natural, or fairly flat, like a crawfish presentation that's flat and is just going to skim like a good skimming rock would. That's how you want to go. So early on you'll start with unweighted. That's the best way to do it if you want success early on. And then my suggestion, if you're looking for a reaction bite as well with your lures, especially for bass and mangrove jack, a plastic that's paddle is side to side instead of like a wobbly slow action. If you're going for a reaction bite, a fast burn back, with a side to side wobbling action shad tail, that's what you're looking for. They're my favourites. So anyway, there's the types of gear to use, the types of reels that you should be using. So high speed reels that are well lubricated with new braid on them, and that setting where you've just dialed in the cast control so it's a little bit looser, and you can play with it once you get your own natural style going. But if you start with only a little bit of leader hanging out the tip of your rod, that's going to mean that your head speed of your rod tip, you can just get it going a little bit quicker. So if you found these tips useful, make sure you let me know in the comments below, or if you've got any ideas on how you like to skip cast or some different rods and reel setups, I'd like to hear what you use. And make sure you subscribe to my channel because I've got new tips and reviews coming all the time.